Here is the lube locker gasket I'm going to install instead of using RTV. Let me show you why these work and other gaskets don't. As soon as my camera adjusts here, you can see there appears to be 3 layers. 2 rubber layers on the outside, sandwiching a metal layer in the middle. Oh, and I should mention this is not a sponsored video. Lube Locker did not send this out to me. I bought this with my own money and wanted to try it. I have been reading up on these for a few months now, and it seems like a ton of people have had positive results. But there are 2 conditions. First, you need to make sure the mating surface on the diff and diff cover are both completely clean. You cannot have any leftover RTV or any dirt or debris on either surface, or else it will not seat properly and could leak. The second condition is you cannot have any deep gouges in either surface. Now, before we get to the installation, let's talk torque specs. You don't need to think too much about this, as Lube Locker recommends using the factory torque specs if you are using a factory diff cover. If you are using an aftermarket diff cover, they say to use the torque specs that the aftermarket company recommends. Simple enough, right? Lube Locker recommends you torque the bolts down twice. On the first pass, they recommend to torque the bolts down to about half of the full torque spec. Then on the second pass, you will torque it down to the full torque value. For instance, since the torque spec for my bolts are 33 foot-pounds, I will be torquing them down to about 15 foot-pounds on the first pass. Then on the second pass, I will fully torque them down to the factory recommended 33 foot-pounds. Let's begin by placing the gasket onto the cover. You want to make sure the holes line up perfectly. Now let's flip it around and see if the gasket is symmetrical. Look at that. Some of the holes do not line up. If you notice the holes in your gasket do not line up with the holes in your cover, go ahead and flip the gasket around and see if that helps. Sometimes the solution is that simple. Now, in order to easily get the cover and gasket back on the differential, I'm going to insert 2 of the bolts into these holes right here. Make sure you grab the correct bolts, because if you remember from earlier, there are 3 bolts that extend out to hold the ABS line in place that runs from side to side. You will notice the longer side is on the driver's side and the smaller side is on the passenger side. And make sure you don't pinch that ABS line either when putting the cover back on. This is as easy as just pushing the cover on and then tightening the bolts down by hand. Once they are tight, go ahead and get the 3 longer bolts tight so you don't forget later on where they are supposed to go. If you listened to me earlier, go ahead and look at the picture on your phone on the placement of these 3 bolts. On my truck, one was right here, and then you can skip one opening and insert another. And then the same thing for the last bolt. Skip one slot and then insert the bolt. That's where all 3 need to go on this differential. Now you can grab the rest of your bolts and screw them all in by hand until they won't turn anymore. Once all the bolts are in, go ahead and go over all of them one more time to make sure they are hand tight. As you are tightening the bolts, it will gradually push the diff cover in further, leaving a gap between some of the bolts. So just do it one more time to get everything flush. Now I'm going to grab my torque wrench and then torque these bolts down to 15 foot-pounds. You want to do this in a crisscross pattern to make sure the pressure is distributed evenly across the cover to ensure the gasket is being squished evenly. I'm going to let this play out in full for anyone that wants to follow this video while they are working on their rear diff. If you are following along, please let us know in the comments what was good or bad about this video. We want to know how to make these videos better for all of you to follow along, so any feedback we receive, good or bad, is taken seriously. I'll stop talking now until all of these are tight. Alright, now that every bolt is currently at 15 foot-pounds, we now need to get them torqued down to the proper torque spec. Mine calls for 33 foot-pounds. So just like before, go ahead and torque them down in a crisscross pattern. Perfect. Now I'm going to go over each bolt, but this time I will do it in a circular pattern. This will ensure every bolt has been torqued down. Just like that. That's all there is to it. If you found any part of this video helpful or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a video from our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.